Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 18 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as always, by my colleague, lead cloud engineer, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
Stressed, busy, stressed. Just come back from a long weekend and I think I need another holiday.
Yeah, bank holidays just get in the way of work, really, don't they? So it's supposed to be downtime, but it just means it compresses the things that you had to get done into a shorter space of time. So there we go. But we're also joined today by very special guest, fellow AWS community builder, Praveen Sambu. How are you doing today, Praveen? Are you also
Doing great.
stressed?
No, this is my morning, so I'm happy.
Good. Well, it looks like from your background that you're actually on holiday. So you got a nice pool outside. So if you are stressed, you can just go and take a dip out there. That looks lovely. So yeah. So Praveen, tell us a little bit about yourself. What you do for a living, what you do for the AWS community, etc.
Sure, Carl. So I'm an AWS community builder and also solution architect, and I work for Concentrix as a serverless engineer over here. And we mainly work on mostly regarding to the serverless, and our part of the daily job is to implement the Amazon queue into the business event. So I have good knowledge on Amazon queue and the Gen AI kind of stuff, which is recently emerging.
Well, that's great because we have actually selected an article about Amazon Q to speak about today. So hopefully you'll have some good insights to share with us. Whereabouts in the world are you, Praveen?
So, can you repeat?
Whereabouts in the world are you geographically? Where are you based?
I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'm in USA.
Okay,
And
nice. Yeah. We've had a
it's
few,
nice weather over here.
certainly had one or two from Texas. I think we had Andres Moreno. Alan Helton's also in Texas,
Texas.
isn't he?
Yeah,
I
Alan
think.
Hamilton lives
Yeah.
nearly 2 miles from me.
So you have met Alan then?
Yeah, I met
Nice.
Alan. I have met so many people. Like,
Have you met Andres? Andres Moreno?
yeah,
That's always
Andres also
yeah.
stays nearby to me.
There we go. The power of the AWS community. Everything's bigger in Texas apart from the world, which seems very small in terms of the AWS community. So
You're about the fourth Texan we've had on. I think there's more representation from Texas than anywhere
Yes.
else.
Yeah, there
well,
was
Texas.
a meetup yesterday, like a long week ago. I met so many people who were actively in the community.
And I think it's probably quite a big community down there. I saw I respond to a lot of LinkedIn polls occasionally because they're clickbaity and they suck me in every time and I click them. And one was about if Silicon Valley is on the way down, which part of the US is on the way up in terms of the tech industry. And I think the options were New York, Texas, and somewhere else. And it was resoundingly Texas as the next number one tech hotbed in the US after Silicon Valley. So no surprise, I guess, that we've had so many guests in from Texas.
If you move like 1 hour from my place, I see like hundreds of companies who are like actively working on the serverless stack. That make me very happy to meet people and get some ideas on them.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that the AWS community and the startup community is thriving in Texas. So on that note, let's move on to our first article this week, which is actually all about Amazon Q. So I'm looking forward to hearing your insights on this one, Praveen, as this is part of your day job. So it's an article on the Amazon news blog about Amazon Q Business going into general availability. And Q Business, of course, is a generative AI application that helps to boost workforce productivity with generative AI. So we've only managed to get one article into the podcast this week before we've mentioned generative AI. That's kind of
I'm
the way
leaning
the world
into
at the
it
moment
now.
is.
I'm leaning.
Everybody's
into it.
talking about generative AI. So
let's
talk about
just lean in.
Yeah. You just got to go with the generative AI flow. But Praveen, you mentioned that you're actively involved in rolling out Amazon Q. So tell us your thoughts on Amazon Q.
Sure, Carl. So Amazon Q is a very nice service provided by Amazon, and it's a like one click setup for your PPO or customer care. And over here, there is a big advantage. Like Amazon focuses from small scale to enterprise scale. So whenever you work with Amazon Q, right, you might be in intention, hey, this is not suitable for me. But Amazon Q, as it is a pay-per-use model, and you can use it for one agent or thousands of agents. That is a very good advantage. But if you go to the other softwares where you need to buy the enterprise edition, and you need to pay a lot of money even though you're not using it.
So what are
that
the
is
alternatives? What's Amazon Q competing against?
Yeah, Twilio is one other service which Amazon Q competes with, and they have similar models like workflows and queues and agents, all those things. So it's a better idea either to choose Twilio or Amazon Q, but Amazon Q has a good advantage of using Amazon services in the backend.
Mm.
Like if you want to integrate with DynamoDB or Lambda or especially a SQSQ, you have much easier flexibility. And coming to Gen AI, right? We have Bedrock, which is improving day by day. So when a particular customer calls you, you want to take the sentiment analysis from the customer. You can use Bedrock to know whether this particular customer is happy customer or we need an agent to be engaged with him. So there is a lot of automation which we can do in the backend, but this suits for enterprise to small scale. That is which I like it most.
So in terms of the projects that you've been working on, without giving away any commercial secrets, what sort of use cases have you been seeing when deploying Q in your customers?
So I cannot speak on that aspect, but when we speak on the customer side, right, we will try to like we will not showcase the Amazon queue directly to them. We will have a wrapper on top of it, and we will work on it. And we also not simply use Amazon queue. We have a lot of indirect other services too, which we use like Twilio and our partner services. Like we customize the business model. We use Amazon queue as one of our service.
Yeah. So you actually put an application layer on top of it
Correct.
to deliver a business
I mean, Q's a chatbot,
requirement.
so how many different things can you really do with a chatbot? It's
Yeah,
kind
Q
of
is a kind of chatbot, and we have a lot of other services even provided by them.
it's kind of a step up from there was another chatbot service. It's not
Lex.
Lex. Is it Lex? Is Lex the
Yeah.
chatbot? Yeah,
Yes.
it's kind of a step up from that because Lex, and I've done a little bit with it for a jam a little while ago. You had to do a lot of work yourself. You had to build all of the calls and all of the responses, and you could do all the integrations and stuff. But there's a lot of legwork to get things to go. I guess Q is just easier to kind of get almost a meantime to hello world. It's just a lot faster to get going because here's a chatbot, bang, and then it can kind of start to work out what's going on rather than you having to have this very customized guardrailed approach.
Yes. And also, if you see, right, Amazon Q not only focusing on contact centers, nowadays they are stretching towards the developers even. Like if you want to find anything, it's like a Google search in Amazon.
It's expensive though. I mean, I looked at the pricing down at the bottom of this article, which I found quite interesting because it's generally available, but according to the article, only in North Virginia and Oregon. So it's only available in a couple of regions, which kind of maps up with the slightly odd rollout we've seen of Bedrock, where it's not been GA in lots of regions. It's kind of been taking a very slow burn to go GA in kind of the next one and the next one and the next one. But there's a new tier that I didn't realize because I played with Q when it was in preview, and then it was just here's Q. It's a preview. There's not like lots of options. But there was business and builder, I think, which was $20 and $25 respectively. But there's a business light, which is quite cool, which is $3, which is a lot more palatable.
Yes.
But what doesn't it do?
Don't know.
For that saving. What are we missing out on if we go business light?
Q apps, queuing
Yeah,
quick
the only saving which we can consider with these particular serverless services are like you pay only for what you use, but you pay more than what you use.
Yeah, I think the Business Pro rather than the Lite, it's covering sort of extra integration. So it's talking about QN QuickSight, it's talking about business intelligence pieces,
Yes.
whereas Q Business Lite is probably much more of a basic chatbot.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to pay $20 for a user for a basic chatbot, but maybe for an internal chatbot that's doing BI stuff, I might be happier to pay that.
Yeah, and I guess you could probably mix and match between the users. So if you've got some users that need the extra functionality, put them on the Pro plan. But I quite like all the native retrievers that are available with this. That you can have a chatbot interrogating all of your business data, but with the guardrails of the user's level of access. So it's hooking into your authentication for all of the different business systems is going to have access to, and it's only going to give you back answers based on the level of permissions you have into each of those business applications. So that's pretty neat, I think, being able to interrogate the business data in that way.
I mean, you'd have to restrict it, right? Otherwise, you run the risk of, hey, Q, drop table from blah, 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 blah. And all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's where like even you can provide some permissions to Amazon Q, like least privilege access can be done to the GenAI systems, even like where they cannot do some kind of stuff in the backend directly.
Yep. Guardrails, very important. We don't want to be introducing tools which are going to cause data breaches.
Or sell cars for $1.
Indeed. Anyway, on that note, let's skip along to our second article for this week. And this is a very short article, so I'm not sure how long we're going to talk about it for, but it's just a feature announcement. I say just a feature announcement. Maybe it's a very exciting feature announcement. We'll find out. Amazon EC2 has simplified visibility into your active AMIs. So very short article, as I say, offering this new feature for visibility into active AMIs. What's this going to do, John?
This makes anyone who has to deregister AMIs not want to cry in a corner, basically. So the problem historically was the relationship between a running instance and the AMI was the instance knew which AMI it was using, but the AMI had no idea whether it was actually in use and what instances were using it. Now, that's a problem. Why is that a problem? Well, because you want to deregister AMIs that are old and not being used, because you pay for these things to hang around. You don't pay for the AMI, but you pay for the EBS that's backing it. And it's probably not a vast sum of money, but it's an amount of money. And at large scale, so much bigger than our customers, at enterprise scale, that starts to get quite painful because you might have thousands of AMIs because you're doing daily or hourly builds, say, and you're probably not using most of them. So how did you do it before? Well, as it says in the feature announcement, you had to write complex scripts to query which of your AMIs were actively used to launch instances. Basically, you had to run through the EC2s and go, what AMI is this using? What AMI is that using? What AMI is this using? What AMI is that using? And then come out with a whole list of here's all the AMIs that are in use. And yes, I'm flipping between AMI and AMI to annoy people. It's on purpose. And you'd come out with a list of here's all the AMIs, here's the ones that are in use, and here's the ones that aren't in use. But you had to do all of that yourself. And it was always one of those, well, if the instance knows what AMI it is, can't AWS do this for me? They've got very good engineers, I'd like to think. I've met enough of them to think that a good chunk of them are cleverer than I am. Can't they do this for me? And now they've gone and done it for us. Brilliant. So now the AMI knows if it's in use or not. Great. So I don't really care what servers are using the AMI, and I'm sure it probably does that as well. But knowing that it is in use, chef's kiss, just solves so many annoying headaches.
Is this a headache you've had, Praveen? Have you been crying in the corner about deregistering AMIs?
So not me, but I've seen some companies in my previous organizations where they were used to pay huge amount of bills for not using the AMIs, but they're storing them for auditing purposes sometimes. That is one of the huge because they generate a lot of AMIs based on the type of need for each deployment, and they used to pay a lot for the AMIs in the backend, like EBS volumes. And one thing we did is to move these AMIs into not used or less one zones, so that we pay less. But this is a nice feature for companies like this to account.
Excellent. So we like this. It's going to save time and
sanity.
Simplify. Yeah. Save time and sanity and prevent crying in the corner. So thank you, AWS.
I also think like at some point they should also provide resources which are not active EC2 instances even, because we spin up EC2 instance and we pay a lot towards it. So they provide a least amount of information, like they are not highly using memory, something like that. But we have so many EC2 instances in the dead state, but we still pay them.
Absolutely. Yes, so there we go. Feature request, not the first feature request we've had on the podcast, but and I'm sure it won't be the last.
No.
Yeah. So on that note, let's take a look at the third article that we want to talk about this week. And this is an article from the AWS database blog, which walks you through setting up notifications for Amazon RDS pending maintenance actions. So John, why is this useful?
Because otherwise you don't know that you've got pending maintenance actions, because there's no other way of working it out. I mean, yes, you can go look at your RDS instance and you'll see that you've got pending maintenance in the console. But when you're looking after, even say as an internal platform guy, when you're looking after more than one or two accounts, it very quickly turns into a job that just doesn't get done, because you're not going and looking at things that aren't telling you they need attention, because you've got stuff to do. You've got deliveries to hit, timelines to work to, customers, be that internal or external, to kind of placate half the time with, I promise I'm working on it, I've got so much to do, it's on my list, it's getting there, I'm getting there. So you're not actively going and checking these things, because it's really dull and it's just boring, and it's the sort of thing you think, well, why can't they just tell me about it? And this is kind of to my point about the previous one. This is, why can't they just tell me about it? Well, in this case, they're not doing it for you, but they've told you how you can tell yourself about it, which is, I guess, a step. Why they can't just do this for us, I don't know. Just like, I'd quite happily just chuck an email address in, or send it to an alternate contact or something, send it to the technical contact that says, by the way, because they do this with other things, with Fargate deprecations or new container images, or the Docker deprecation for ECS and so on and so on. They tell you about these things. So why this can't be included in that, I don't know. But this is a start. It's a start. It's not horrifically complicated. They've written all the code for you. So if you've got someone internal that says we must unit test absolutely everything, they've written it. It's fine.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. But RDS are like, if you want to like update the maintenance things, that's very important for us to maintain the security aspect of it. The backend system, we need to regularly update or maintain it. And sometimes the responsibility falls between AWS and us based on the type of workload we choose. So sometimes we need to upgrade the EC2 instances to the latest patches, or sometimes if you are taking RDS from Amazon, they take that responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different kind of things here, isn't there?
Yes.
There's the weekly maintenance window, which this isn't talking about, where they will handle things like patching and all the rest of it. And then there's service updates, I guess, which is more what this is in line with, or out of band updates, or updates that would potentially take the instance down for a bit, or that kind of thing. Say, because they'll do minor updates to RDS for you automatically, but they won't patch the OS automatically. So that's more what this is for. And yeah, it's incredibly important to keep it up to date, but it's incredibly easy to forget to do it, because some of it's done automatically, i.e. the minor service versions. So it'll go from MySQL 8035 to 8036 automatically, and some of it won't, which is just incredibly frustrating.
So AWS have actually written a serverless app here based on Lambda, EventBridge, etc. So I guess you can just copy and paste the code right into your own environment, pretty much. Update the parameters.
About the size of it, yeah. About the size of it. I might have a go at productizing this, because this is kind of handy for us.
So where does the information come from then?
Oh, that's the funny thing, isn't it? It's putting it out to EventBridge anyway, so the data's there. And basically, what the Lambda's doing is it's listening for that event on EventBridge, and then just going, I've been called, sending a message out to an SNS topic, which then sends you an email. Easy peasy. But it's just annoying, because the data's all already there, but you're having to do everything still. And okay, they've kind of done it for you now, but just bleh.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's move on from RDS maintenance to a little bit of a gotcha that we discovered in the news this week. This is an article on. I don't know how you pronounce the name of this website, but I ought to be a little bit careful, I suppose, shouldn't I? ARS Technica. Let's call it that
Ars
way.
Ars Technica. One of my
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
websites back when I worked in finance, because we had limited internet access, but I could still read tech news on Ars Technica, which is great.
I'm going to call it ARS Technica, and listeners can decide for themselves how they wish to pronounce the name of this website. But this is all about a guy who managed to run up a big bill by misconfiguring an AWS or an Amazon S3 bucket, because I think S3 is an Amazon service, but they've called it AWS here, right? It's a bit of bingo between whether AWS services are named AWS or Amazon, but I'm pretty sure S3 is Amazon, not AWS. Anyway,
I think it's Amazon because it predates AWS.
Yeah, exactly. So not that important, but this is all about a developer who ran up a $1,300 bill by misconfiguring his S3 bucket. So how on earth did this happen, Praveen?
So, Carl, I just want to correct you. Like, I went through the article, and that is his first blog in Medium, and that went rocket like thing. So, he did not misconfigure it. Some other company did the misconfiguration in the S3 bucket name,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that company keeps on loading. And I love the way he wrote the things. Like, he did a lot of good analysis. Like, he also went and make the bucket public so that the data keeps coming into his bucket, and he explored the data even. Good thing that he did not share the what company name is, but the way he identified the issue is very important. I also faced the similar issues a lot of times, but I never noticed it this much that it would charge it, because we work with so many S3 buckets in our day-to-day life. Sometimes we change the bucket configurations, but we forget to name them properly in the YAML file. Then we get a lot of unauthorized requests, but they are chargeable. Like I came to know after this thing, like the and Amazon tells that that is on us, but then later they realize that this is going to be voided. That is important thing.
This was definitely a PR problem for AWS more than a
Yeah,
technical problem. So, yeah, it wasn't a misconfigured bucket as such. It was a poorly named bucket because he'd
yes,
accidentally stumbled on the name that a popular open source tool, I don't know what tool, I don't care, used for its backups. So he must have picked something reasonably generic that for some reason hadn't already been taken, which is fun. Like, I'm always struggling to find names of things, and maybe it's my paranoia, but I tend to put the account number in the bucket name. So it's like, well, it's for this account. There you go. And you can't kind of guess that. But yeah, it was a perfectly well configured bucket. And then the article kind of says here, he either made the bucket public writable, which is, generally not recommended, but interesting experiment. And in 30 seconds, he's collected 10 gigabytes of backup data.
correct.
That's huge. Yeah.
But John,
And then
I also I thought in my mind, like if you create a S3 bucket name, right, then it tells that this bucket name is not available, and 80% of time that would be a private, and I can hit the private bucket with my for loop or something, and make your bill bombarded.
it's what's called a denial of wallet attack. It's absolutely a
But
thing.
you are
You
paying
can't.
for my attacks. Like I'm just using a for loop and
Mm,
vigorously calling the name of a bucket, which I know that is not my bucket. Like
that's why
whenever you
that's
create
why
a
it's an
S3
attack.
bucket,
It's intentional.
yeah,
It's deliberate. It's denial of wallet. It's I'm just going to be nasty and cost you a load of money.
correct.
It was not a common attack vector hitting the AWS bucket because you would have to have a configured AWS CLI and kind of know what you were doing to do it, and it's not a common vector for just the sake of being a bit nasty. But it was certainly an interesting one. And then, it kind of got out to support. Support said, okay, we'll comp it, but it's a one-off. And then it
But
kind of
this
went a little bit
happens same to the other
stratospheric.
services, even like EC2 instances, API gateways, even they are also under the same boundaries. But the good part over here is we don't know the name of EC2 instances, but here we have a trick. Like if you enter S3 bucket name, we know whether it is already occupied or not. So we know that is being used by other person in this case.
Yeah, quite. But yeah, the article went a bit stratospheric within the community. It made a fair bit of noise, as we all sort of know, because we'd have seen that. And then Jeff Barr weighed in and went, "Oh, we'll fix it. Fine, cool. You'll fix it. Gravy, no complaints. Cool story. Nice bit of tech. They'll fix it."
And what is the fix?
I've
They
no
are
idea.
not
It'll
going
be an
to charge
internal
the
AWS
same thing,
fix.
I think.
Sorry, Praveen. Say again.
They're not going to charge for 401 unauthorized.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a bit of a hack, really.
Well,
rather
it's not
than
a hack so much because you can't really fix for human behavior, and that's the problem here. The fix is to just correct the billing and say that, for this service, whilst you pay for API requests, you're not going to pay for anything that results in a not found or an unauthorized, which is, okay, fine.
Cool. Okay, well, let's move on from bucket horror stories to our final article for this week, which is a slightly more positive note.
This is where all the bucket money's going.
Where all the bucket money's going, exactly. So it's an article on the Register, based on AWS's most recent quarterly results, where AWS have for the first time hit a 100 billion revenue run rate, expanding margins and delivering most of the profit for Amazon Inc. I wonder how much of that was from buckets that were being exploited, and whether they'll be able to maintain that into the next quarter. But we've seen that in the recent quarterly results announcement, AWS's sales improved 17% year on year to land at 25 billion. 9.4 billion of which was operating income. These are eye-watering numbers. And obviously 100 billion is a landmark run rate. See whether AWS can maintain that going forwards. The growth rate has increased, so one suspects that they can. Where do you think it's all coming from, John?
Well, historically, most of AWS's revenue, has been from EC2. Like 60%, 60+% has been from EC2. And then I think the next kind of 30% has been from RDS. So it's all been from fairly meat and potatoes, old-fashioned, boring workloads. It's been from compute and databases. Because as cool and sexy as serverless is, and I'm a serverless CB, so I think it's cool and sexy, and as interesting as Gen AI is, and it's interesting, like it or not, it's new and it's here to stay, most people doing, quote, real work, quote, will run stuff on servers, will need things in databases. I think 80% of the internet is CRUD apps, and CRUD, not the complete CRUD, as in create, read, update, delete. Most of it is CRUD apps in e-commerce, which is a CRUD app. So most of this is going to be coming from EC2, I would think. I don't think they break it down to that level in this article because they're just taking the big headline number, chuck some quotes in, call it an article.
And also, I think like nowadays, right, a lot of startups are choosing the direction towards spinning their software into the cloud. And even the health sector was also trusting the cloud nowadays. And we have organizational cloud, which can protect them. And even the government cloud is one of the secure cloud for a lot of government and hospital activities. And they get a lot of billing from these kind of enterprise as well as startup customers.
I don't think startups are worth a huge amount of money to AWS
Yeah.
because a lot of startups in the SaaS space, particularly, are going direct to serverless and they're going direct to containers and things that don't
Yes.
have really high run costs because they're born in the cloud native, all that jazz. So they're not spending vast amounts of money. But I suppose if you've got 100 million of these little customers, then cool, that's all just bonus money. What AWS have been doing, I think, for the last year, maybe a little bit more, they've been certainly targeting the enterprise customers we've been seeing this from the trade press, I think, where they've been targeting the big enterprises that are still running data centers. So there's still lots of data center migrations going on. The article says this, and we had got this in the keynote from the London Summit a couple of weeks ago, that 85% of IT spend is still for on-prem. So that's still old-fashioned data centers, and that's still racking and stacking and kit in a box and all the rest of it. So I think there's a lot more to go in terms of getting people out of data centers and into the cloud. Whether, of course, this 85% of spend includes the fact that AWS are actually running data centers. I don't know if their spend's been included in that metric or removed from it because it's a bit double dippy if it hasn't been.
You can't move the cloud servers to the cloud because they're already in the cloud.
I mean, it'll run in a data center somewhere, but maybe don't run your own one.
Yeah, I can provide a good one hint which can help customers to reduce their bill even through this podcast. There is a feature called scheduler instances for EC2 instances where you can shut down and turn on the instances when there is no workload. As an example, which we can take, right? showrooms, Gap showroom or any showrooms, they doesn't run always. They close their business at 8 p.m. and they open at 10 a.m. in the morning. So our servers are being running in the night without any activity or without any service. So what we can do is we can use scheduler instances to shut down the EC2 instances and have a little bit of one or two things and turn them back on before the business kicks off. So scheduler instance is a very good feature in EC2 instance to lower your payments.
I mean, there's definitely scope, I think, in this 100 billion run rate, million,
Yes.
whatever it is, for mal-configured environments, particularly again at the enterprise scale where they've lifted and shifted and they're running it like they ran their data center. Because we certainly hear noise about this where people have gone, I moved to the cloud and everything wasn't magically cheaper. In fact, it's more expensive. That's because you're leaving everything on, or that you're just doing it wrong. Much as
Yeah.
I hate to quote Steve Jobs and say, just don't hold it like that. Just don't do that. But yeah, there's definitely a push from AWS to help people in that regard. So it's kind of one of those, they're kind of at odds with themselves because they like their big run rate, but equally, a happy customer spending a bit less money is going to spend less money for a longer period. So.
But do you think we've seen a lot of the impact of optimization? Because we certainly saw a slowdown in previous quarters' growth for AWS, and they were blaming that on optimization because a lot of customers spent the last couple of years trying to optimize their workloads and optimize their costs, etc. Now we're seeing the growth rate accelerating again. So have we seen the sort of period of optimization where most of the low-hanging fruit has been kind of squeezed out of this run rate, or do you think there's still a lot?
I don't think so. I think this is peaks and troughs, and we're just getting to kind of this is a big ticket number and there's a peak here because they've hit a big ticket number and there'll be lots of noise about it. And as we see more data center migrations, they will be badly optimized and then they will get better again. So the run rate will go up and then it'll come back down again. Then it'll go up and then it'll come back down again. But the overall trend is certainly up.
And that's great. That's what we like to see. But on that note, absolutely keeps us all employed. Yeah, all of us cloudy people, keeps us in work. But on that note, we have reached the end of our time for this week's episode of Logicast. So that was season 3, episode 18 of Logicast. Thank you, John, as always, for your insights, and thank you, Praveen, for joining us from Texas, where we seem to have a bit of our own little community of Logicast alumni now building up in the Texas area. So yeah, we really enjoyed having you as our guest, Praveen. So thank you for sharing your insights with us. If you enjoyed the podcast and you've made it this far, please tell your friends. We are available to download from wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to see what we look like when we're recording, we are also available on YouTube. So that's all for this week from Logicast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you for having